The best of money matters. Right Business.
Welcome to The Right Business, where we dive deep into the stories of trailblazers who dare to disrupt the status quo, find the gap in the market to find the right business. Hello, I'm Hongbin Jeong. Now, our next guest's journey to becoming a successful entrepreneur is as extraordinary as the very rockets he now helps propel into space. Simon Gwozdz, who is the founder and CEO of Equatorial Space Systems, may have grown up with a keen passion for space, but his academic path wasn't without its challenges. Fast forward to today, however, Simon is leading a cutting-edge space startup here in Singapore. Some might even call him the Elon Musk of Singapore. Equatorial Space Systems is breaking barriers in the rocket propulsion and space launch industry, offering environmentally friendly technology that reduces costs and greenhouse gas emissions. So joining us today to tell us more is Simon Gwozdz, who is the CEO and founder of Equatorial Space Systems. Hi, Simon. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
All right, Simon, your journey from geography to space engineering is quite fascinating. What was the turning point that led you to, pursue a career in space tech? Could you share more about your journey from acing geography in school to founding a rocket propulsion startup?
Yeah, it was actually always on my mind since I was a child. Mm-hmm. I was always interested in space, just like many of our viewers would probably have been. Difference is I basically refused to grow up. So, yeah, geography always spoke to me. It was always very straightforward, and I always liked looking at maps and exploring the world and traveling, whenever I had a chance. And space tech just seemed like a very natural extension to geography in a lot of ways, because if you think about it, space is our extended environment. We are all already in space, just on the surface of the Earth. Right? So, yeah, that flips the equation a little bit. So when I was in university, I decided to take some steps in that direction, and I have started to network with the local space tech community. I started to learn from them. I met amazing people on the way, and I started picking up some bits and pieces, which later fitted very well into what became Equatorial Space. So,
that's very interesting. But, starting a space startup here in Singapore, which is a country not traditionally associated with space exploration, must have been a bold move. Why Singapore? And how did you manage the initial obstacles, given that Singapore is relatively nascent space industry?
Well, why not? I mean, there's always a first time for everything. Singapore hasn't historically been an aerospace hub. Before Changi Airport was built, it wasn't always a petrochem and oil and gas hub. So, of course, it's all new until someone actually goes out and tries it out and maybe succeeds. There's been a lot of interesting developments with space tech in Singapore, which is mostly related to satellite and satellite data, which has plenty of very down-to-earth applications in plenty of industries. Launch is a little more interesting because it does require some additional, no pun intended, space to develop. But we've been successfully managing so far in partnership with some regional countries. So, yeah, why not?
I see. Well, you taught yourself propulsion engineering and orbital mechanics. What were some of the biggest hurdles you faced during that self-learning process? Are these subjects that you can learn by yourself?
You can definitely get the fundamentals right. Enough for you to interface with those people who are actual experts, so at least you understand what is going on in general. I was good at geography back during my A-levels, but I was not exactly super good at math all along. So that was a struggle. I had to basically pick up quite a fair bit of things I was lacking along the way. But where there's a will, there's a way.
Where there's a will, there's a way. Now, Equatorial Space Systems HRF-1 fuel formulation apparently is a groundbreaking innovation that promises significant cost savings and environmental benefits. For, just a regular girl like me and our listeners who might not understand what really this means, could you elaborate on how it works and what makes it a game changer in the space industry?
Sure. So I hope it doesn't devolve into a lecture on rocket science. We only have so much time. But the type of rockets that we built are very promising. They are non-explosive by themselves. They do have the enormous potential in reducing the cost and risk and the environmental impact of space travel. However, they have been historically underperforming. They were not good enough to be useful in space launch applications. And what we have done as a company is resolve that fundamental limitation with that core intellectual property, which is formulation of a solid fuel that brings that particular subset of rocket engines to the same ballpark in terms of performance as traditional ones. So Think of us as a bit of an electric car company. You know, electric cars make a lot of sense.
Right.
They have plenty of advantages, but it wasn't until the battery technology caught up with them that they've become viable and competitive. So that's what we do with that type of rocket engines.
I see. So what are the challenges that you faced in balancing innovation with, ethical responsibility in the rapidly growing space industry?
Well, we do eliminate a lot of risk, but a rocket is still a rocket, right? So there's still ways in which it can potentially hurt somebody or damage something. And we took plenty of precautions, and we always take plenty of precautions, even at significant expense, to make sure that what we do is done properly, it's done safely, and we do not put anyone, either our staff or the public or anybody else, at any risk. So that always comes with additional challenges, but it's imperative, and we do take pride in doing things with absolute and utmost priority in safety.
I see. Well, with your plans to eventually send humans into space, what do you see as the biggest challenges in, making space travel more accessible to the general public?
Yeah, so space launch industry is only around 3% of the total value of commercial aerospace and commercial aviation industries. There's plenty of room to grow. And I firmly believe that if we do make rockets just fundamentally safer by their very nature, by eliminating the explosive danger they are typically associated with, that will open up space to more applications, including business to consumer applications, which are simply not practical or possible or desired right now. And I think that's how we can slowly start to bridge that gap in scale between the two industries. So it's imperative that we focus on developing our new market niches for the time being. It's impossible to compete with someone like SpaceX directly right now, especially not if you're a startup. We do believe that there's plenty of ways that space launch can be further developed and that we can make plenty of difference in very meaningful areas with our propulsion technology.
I see. Now, the low-altitude demonstrator rocket was a significant milestone for your company. What was the process like leading up to the launch?
Yeah, we should probably, write a blog post about that sometime, because we did it during COVID. And that was a pretty difficult year. I actually lost my mother that year. The company was not doing very well. It was riding on very small angel investor checks at the time. We did not have any contracts or any commercial traction back then. And we decided to bet everything we had on doing one test flight, which happened to be in Malaysia with some Malaysian partners. And, we had to demonstrate that what we do works in flight conditions, even in low-altitude flight regime. And eventually, long story short, we did it, it worked, and then we were able to move on.
I mean, you bet it all and risked it all there. How did it feel to have achieved the first commercially built prototype rocket test flight here in Southeast Asia then?
I wish we went higher, but we could only go so high on the side that we had access to back because of all the travel restrictions which were going on. But, it was cathartic in a lot of ways. We were staring at that rocket, just itching to fly it for many, many months. We had a lot of challenges along the way. And to finally see it go, I think it ruins you for life. It's like, like a branding iron for cattle. Sometimes you have those moments that just sear into your imagination and your memory, and that was one of them.
I see. Well, in the space industry, of course, as you mentioned, collaboration is often crucial. How important has building partnerships been for Equatorial? And can you share any collaborations that have significantly impacted your company's growth?
Absolutely. So, as our viewers would probably realize, Singapore is not the most optimum place for a rocket system development, right? We have a lot of limitations around our space. Again, no pun intended, but we do. So one of the things that we are probably most happy and just grateful for happened a year ago, and that was when we formed a deep partnership with Australia's Northern Territory. And we have established a test facility for our rocket engines right outside of Darwin. So that was a turning point. That's when we could start building much larger engines and test them and optimize them. And that was absolutely critical to our ambitions in building spacefaring rockets, which will be launched later this year.
Ooh, interesting. All right. Well, on that note, what do you think are the key factors that will drive the future of space travel and exploration?
I think there will be a lot more segmentation than people think. I think there will be plenty of independent launch companies who are specializing in a particular kind of service. Of course, the likes of SpaceX are going to be the go-to launch service providers if you have a lot of big satellites and you want them all in one orbit. But if you want to distribute smaller ones, or if you need a more responsive service, that's when smaller rockets are going to be very, very handy.
I see. Well, on that note, Equatorial has ambitious plans to launch suborbital and orbital rockets. What does the future of space exploration look like to you, Simon, and where do you see Equatorial in the next decade?
Well, I think in the era of great power competition, I think there's going to be a lot of interesting activity and a lot of rivalry going on, and that's probably going to be very healthy for the overall ecosystem. After all, the last space race gave us the Apollo program. It gave us the space stations. I think with what's going on right now, we couldn't be more excited, honestly. I think we're going to see human beings back in the moon very soon. I think there'll be plenty of commercial potential in the area between Earth and Moon moving forward in the next 10 years or so. And, I think we're likely to see human beings on Mars as well in the next 15 years or so.
In the next 15 years.
Give or take. Don't hold me to that.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Simon, for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. That was Simon Gwozdz, who is the CEO and founder of Equatorial Space System. This has been The Right Business with me, Hongbin Jeong.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.